Welcome to Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD, the podcast that delves into the diverse and impactful roles scientists can play beyond the lab. With me, David Mendes. Welcome to this new episode of Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD. Today, I have the great pleasure of having with me Andrew Tracy Ceperley. Andy is a seasoned university administrator, a consultant, and a professional certified coach for individuals and teams serving colleges and universities throughout the world. From newer administrators to senior leaders with broad responsibilities and complex portfolios, he has coached hundreds of campus professionals looking to inspire their work with innovation, energy, and authenticity. Andy lives in Palm Springs, California, with his husband, Skip Horn, and their cat, Dolly. Welcome to Beyond the Thesis, Andy. It's really a pleasure for me to have you here, and I'm really eager to learn from all these years of experience you have, in the career preparation and also in shaping careers of academics throughout the years. So welcome to Papa PhD.
Thank you, David. It's great to be here.
So this was a very quick intro. Can you share a little bit with the audience, a little bit more about who you are, what drives you to do what you do, and tell us a little bit about this journey of yours, and you've been working, around academic careers for a bunch of years in different universities. Can you tell us a little bit about that backstory and about what you do today?
Yeah, well, it all started when I escaped Washington D.C. Like so many graduates of undergraduate programs with business degrees, I thought the track to success would be a corporate career in a major company that was about growth and revenue and promotions, and found after 2 years working as an assistant buyer for a major retailer in the DC area that there was this incredible emptiness that I could not overcome, a feeling I'd not experienced before. And so I did what so many people do a few years out of college. I took those GREs and I found myself accepted in master's programs at UNC Chapel Hill and the University of Virginia. And I ended up in beautiful Charlottesville, Virginia, where I ended up spending my years as a grad student, completing my master's in rhetoric and communication studies. And at the same time, finding this world of student services and higher ed administration really by accident. It led to this wonderful early gig as a career librarian in a career center at UVA, making $6,000 less than I was making a few years before in my corporate DC career, and causing me to think, what have I done? Why have I chosen this path? Why have I spent all this money added to my debt load to land in a campus job making so little money and wondering what pathway might exist? But I hung in there. I had a wonderful boss/mentor named Dr. Larry Simpson, who gave me plentiful opportunities. And I found that I actually loved this work. I loved being part of an academic environment. I loved the rhythm of the academic terms. I loved graduation season. I loved September move-in for students. And it started something. This was many years ago. I'm dating myself, but we're going back to the late 80s here. And the campuses, in some ways, felt very much the way they do today. But what happened at Career Services at UVA turned into a fascination with higher education and a desire to, along with my beloved spouse, Skip, to pick up and move pretty much every 3 to 5 years, experiencing other campuses throughout the US, and also a short experience at the University of Melbourne in Australia. So by surprise, I found this world of administration, deciding not to pursue a PhD in my experience, but to dig into the academy and learn as much as I could. And it's been just a phenomenal journey for me. It really has.
Yeah, and just if and I'll share your LinkedIn link in the show notes. People can see this journey that you've had, and it's interesting because for sure you've lived within different academic cultures, but I'm sure there's a main theme that you fell in love with that kind of keeps you passionate about this, and that even though you have seen all these different institutions, this main theme is something that has stayed alive as an interest of yours, and even led you to write this book that we're going to talk about. But one thing that of course draws my curiosity when you talk about this journey, and one of the reasons why it was a great pleasure inviting you on the podcast, is that I feel that you must have this kind of historic view of how things are evolving, because you just said the campus feel the same, but I imagine that given that you have been working first in different universities, but also different decades, different years, pre-COVID, post-COVID, you must have a temporal map of how things have been evolving in academic careers, of course, but in careers in general of people who finish a university degree, be it graduate or not. That's something that I think the audience of Beyond the Thesis is going to be very grateful, having this. Where are we, and maybe where you think we're going? that would be a great take home for them. But also the one thing, and I mentioned this in the beginning, that has been a focus of yours or a passion of yours, is this academic milieu, this academic space that I must say, with the guests that I have on the show, often we talk about leaving academia. And here you're able to have a totally different conversation, although similar in a way, but about, but how can I stay? Even though, let's say, I'm not going for tenure track professorship. So, is there first maybe something you can share about trends that you've seen change and that you like seeing change comparing the 80s to today?
Yeah, sure. We talk about change, and I can recall my first national conference many decades ago. And don't you know, David, that the conference theme was about change? And I feel like every conference I've attended since then has had something to do with change. But even though we've always been talking about it, I feel like it is shifting. And now we're using words like resilience and agility. And as we look at these careers that people build, especially in college and university campuses, the days are gone where people are joining a university in a residence life position, for instance, right out of graduate school, and maybe moving up through the ranks and sticking with that institution. When I joined this profession, so many people had been at the University of Virginia and then been at the University of Texas and some of the other places I worked, and they'd been there for so many years. I think the shift that we are seeing as new generations move through these academic spaces is that so many people are now 3 to 5 year people on these campuses, as Skip and I were back in the day and have been throughout our careers. So there is a desire on campuses for people contributing to the learning of students inside the classroom and certainly out, to find some early wins, to experience a sense of accomplishment for whatever the next frontier might be. So those early days of pay your dues when we joined university back in the day, and hang in there, Andy, and you'll get there. And in 3 years, you might become an assistant director. And then we'll see what happens a few years after that. I don't believe that emerging professionals on campuses have that level of patience today.
Okay, so and I feel it feels to me that it's mirroring what you see in the general job market, which is this kind of shortening of the lifespan of one's stint at one place or another. One thing that we can one point that we can use to start going deeper into the conversation is actually, because it's something I haven't covered on the podcast, what are what's this space, this kind of professorship adjacent space, or I don't know how to call it differently based on my experience with the guests that I've had, but the space that you're talking about in the book, why is it that people don't have it in their radar, and what does it look like? What does it contain? What opportunities are there for people, let's say, finishing their master's or finishing their PhD, that really like the academic space, but that, for example, are thinking, I don't think I'm going to go for a postdoc, but I'd really like to keep contributing to academia and to university. What's the space like? What might be something that surprises people that exist in that space?
That's great. I think that space that you described, and David, by the way, I love that we're talking about careers that are adjacent. I think that's a powerful word. I know that the word alternative that has been used for many years with our doctoral students tends not to sing the way people would like it to sing, and it's not always appreciated. So thank you for using that word. I think that the space that exists for our graduate students, our researchers, our postdocs, is a space that is to be discovered if they are willing to expand beyond their academic bubble. One of the observations that I learned through all my years running career centers and certainly working with graduate students is because the work is so individualized often and so specific, their entire world is the bubble of their academic department, of their professors, of their cohort of colleagues. And the rest of the campus and all of these opportunities that might exist that could benefit from the skills they are developing are not noticed. And one of the messages that I provide to readers in the book is higher education is a wonderful space for us to challenge ourselves to pay attention. How grand is a college or university campus steeped in history, responsible for the transformative life experiences of countless learners that have come through that space? I feel like as graduate students thinking about, maybe I won't write that dissertation, or maybe the tenure track role and having to move to another place is not what I want to do given my life circumstances. There are opportunities that exist on campus, but that graduate student needs to lift up his, her, or their heads and really look around and strengthen a network of connections to realize them.
And so, let's say a listener is in their master's or even in their PhD. What does lifting their head look like? What keywords should they look for? What type of office should they try to reach out to, or maybe offer their help to?
So important, and I think for our graduate students today, if they were to Google on their college or university site career services, they might be surprised to find that there are actually individuals in their campus career center whose work is dedicated to their unique needs. For many, many years, the growth of career development on college and university campuses, which started to take hold after World War II, to help get people jobs and to really, really focus on the employability of students. But as we have seen rising numbers of graduate students coming to our campuses, and especially those pursuing terminal degrees, what's come along with that is a campus focus on services and programs to help them explore their professional futures. PhD candidate in history doesn't necessarily want to go into the campus career center and wait for an appointment next to a freshman who's trying to declare their major. Their needs are very, very different. And one of my first responsibilities as a new professional at the University of Virginia right after graduate school was to help develop programs. Back then, David, we were calling them alternative careers for PhDs. But
Some people still do.
that took me on the road, and I discovered that even back then, there were schools like Harvard and Penn and some of the other Ivies and the Ivy Plus institutions that had already dedicated professionals, many of them with terminal degrees themselves, who were trained as career counselors to help these graduate students explore the tenure track, the research route, and adjacent opportunities where they could leverage their skills in other ways. And so today, you look around, there is a massive national network called the Graduate Careers Network of people who know each other, and their entire focus within career centers on campuses is to support graduate students.
So that's a starting point, going to the career services. If one of the issues is ignorance about the existence of jobs around the campus where you can, after your degree, still contribute to the academic day-to-day of the university, what are some examples of these jobs? What if I'm doing my PhD, I did a PhD in cell biology, let's say, but I'm feeling that I want to stay connected and maybe even working with the university. I'm in, let's say, year 2, 3 of my PhD. I want to start networking to see how that can materialize, me staying at the university even though I'm not going to teach. Is there a way for you to describe how they can contribute to the university as employees later on with, bringing the whole strength of their degree, but not in that classic way that's been maybe expected and that's canonical, let's say, which is to go teach?
So we're back to kind of lifting our heads up and expanding beyond whatever academic, sometimes esoteric bubble that our graduate students live within, and actually working on establishing a network in areas elsewhere on campus. If there's one thing that we learn on our college and university campuses, is that people are willing to have coffee dates with us. You're in this beautiful environment where there are a lot of people who are eager to share their story. They're eager to offer insight and advice. So as I reflect, back on these early days for me in Charlottesville at UVA, here's the truth, and maybe some of our listeners will not appreciate this, but the way I broke into career services is offering myself as an unpaid graduate assistant. I already had a teaching assistantship, so there was already money coming in, but I so wanted to learn about student career development, and I was writing a master's thesis about the employability of college graduates, that I pitched to the director this idea, 10 hours a week for the final year of my graduate degree. If they would teach me a lot, I would be available to provide support. And that's how I was able to make the transition and find that adjacency for myself that would not have existed had I not taken the initiative to say, I want to learn more about this. I am willing to commit this period of time. And it worked out. It led to opportunities I never would have realized had I just applied for positions online.
I find it super interesting the way you put it, that you proposed this model of 10 hours. So you thought about it. What led you to make it happen that way? What was the thinking process, and how did you how did you get into this mode of, I'm going to kind of prepare a little program that I'm going to pitch, and that I'll see if they take me? Because it takes some extroversion in a way, because you put yourself out there, but also it's strategic in a certain way, because you're kind of putting something on the table, and then seeing if the offer is accepted, and then you yourself go get that knowledge that you wanted.
It certainly was strategic, and I was really looking for a way to get more out of the master's thesis I was writing. I was determined, David, to write a thesis that would have some practicality. I wanted this thesis to lead to conference gigs. I wanted it to lead to journal articles. And since the thesis was about employability and what students go through as they consider how to best leverage their undergraduate degrees, I was spending all this time in the Career Center. So I'm sitting in there in the career library, going through binders and watching old beta videotapes and all of that for my research. So I thought, there's got to be more I could do since I'm sitting here. And so that's what hatched the idea.
And would you say that because we're talking about different offices, different teams that make the university work, in different manners. In administration is a very encompassing word. Is it typical for these types of services to accept help from, let's say, a graduate student to work on a specific task or to develop a specific project? Is it common that if you arrive with an offer or a plan or an idea, that they'll take that coffee with you, like you said, but then is it common that you can find you can dip your toe in that pool by offering some of your time, and that they accept it? So I'm asking because it's something I didn't do, and it's a reality that I'm sure you know much better than myself.
How common it is, I don't know, but it does suggest a graduate student's desire to broaden connections, to add value in new ways, and to demonstrate the ability to get a project done. Now, had I pitched 10 hours a week and 3 weeks into it said, you know what, my thesis has taken up too much time and I'm taking these classes and I'm teaching these other classes, I can't do it, my early development of a reputation would have gone out the window and that wouldn't have led to anything. But I demonstrated that, no, I'm serious about this and I am accountable and I am committed. I think it's a wonderful way to sort of learn the ropes. I knew nothing about running a career center. I didn't know how to review student resumes or help them prepare for interviews or research companies or do all the self-assessment that students do. But a group of leaders in that office took me for free, and I should emphasize that, and said, yeah, we'll teach you stuff if you help us out. I said, let's do this. That's the model that's worked for me. Others certainly find other ways to sort of move into project-oriented opportunities. But the risk I've seen that the PhD has when looking for administrative experiences is that a search committee may perceive that they're looking at it as underemployment, or that they are feeling that given the incredible work they have done in their discipline, they might be a little bit beyond working for the admissions office, working in a fundraising or an alumni or a residence life area. And so it's really important as the graduate student positions themselves for opportunities that they truly demonstrate sort of this humble willingness to say, yeah, I've done a lot of cool stuff in my grad. I'm proud of what I've done. And I've got a lot to learn. How can we work this out together so that I can really, really add value here? And there has to be that willingness to do the work that is not academic. So much of higher ed is not run on doing incredible research. It's run on a lot of administration. It's run on a lot of tasks. It's run on a lot of meetings and things that people need to learn to sort of lean into and embrace and demonstrate that, yeah, this is good. Not, this is something I'm going to do until I'm applying for all these PhD tenure track jobs around the country. I'm just going to hang out with you all until something better comes along. If that's the tone that is set, the pathway for that individual will not be as robust, chances are.
And, it does come to mind that there are some, in some of the university entities, there are like some seats for students. And I think that's like, these are already like pre-made paths to follow for that type of taking part in how the university works. But I find it inspiring that you took it into your own hands to actually make it happen in a certain way versus just finding something that was pre-made for you. So, and I think these types of stories are important because they make real the possibility in people's minds that they can actually create opportunities for themselves.
David, especially for you and your listeners with terminal degrees, I was joking with you earlier that I'm speaking to you today as someone who is the proud recipient of a master's degree in rhetoric and communication studies, who decided not to go on for a PhD. And I'm very proud of the career that I've had. And I recognize that had I gone on and completed a PhD, opportunities would have been much richer for me on the campuses that I served. So another advantage of the individual who actually completes, even if the PhD is in chemistry or it's in sociology or it's in history, once they find their way into an administrative role on a campus and they kind of get their sea legs, their opportunities tend to be richer than opportunities for people who have topped out at the masters. And I'm not complaining about the opportunities that I've had, but I know that there are many cases where had I gone into it with a terminal degree, more doors would have opened.
Hi there. Enjoying my conversation with Andy Ceperley? If you have questions and doubts about your professional future as a young scientist, as a PhD, you can now talk directly to me just like Andy did by joining the Beyond the Thesis community on Skool.com. If you go to skool.com/PapaPhD, you will find a safe space and a community of people like you figuring out their postgraduate school career journey. And you will have ample opportunity to talk with me directly, to ask me your questions on live coffee time sessions and on weekly Q&As. Additionally, you will find courses and also have the opportunity of having one-on-one calls with me. So remember, skool.com/PapaPhD. See you soon. One of the preoccupations from graduate students that I hear often is, but if I don't, let's say, stay in research, I won't be contributing to the full extent of my abilities. And here you are talking about the fact that with a terminal degree, you have a lot of opportunities to contribute. And I wonder whether you have a story or an example to share of what that can actually look like in the world. This finding a place in academia in one of these roles, coming from a totally different or very specialized domain, like you just mentioned, chemistry. It could be anything else. But I think people have a hard time, kind of this cognitive dissonance of, but if you did something in chemistry, well, you should work in chemistry. And I try to to help people visualize it, but I wonder if you have your own words or even a story or something, an example to share that can put some, a name and a face to this.
Yeah, I can actually. And I think if we use that chemist as an example, one leader who is referenced in the book Tonesetters in the Academy is someone who did have a background in sciences, completed her doctoral work, was doing work at Princeton and moved on to Brown University, and found her way into student life positions as a dean of students and rising to a vice president of student affairs, and completed her career and is currently emeritus at UCLA. A great example of that scientist who perhaps did need to park all of that chemistry that she was doing for all those years, but found a way to translate the skills that were developed as a graduate student and in her early career. And she found this world of student life and became truly one of the big names in student life in the country.
Does it take having a mentor, or is there a pivotal conversation that happens at a certain moment, or is it a question of opportunity? How does that materialize, and how can people listening, maybe a little bit like you did all those years ago, put one small strategic step towards increasing the chance that something like that materializes?
I'm glad that you brought up the word mentor, and I think that the development of a network of people who can truly see us and support us is important. I write about in the book having our anamkaras. An anamkara was a term developed by Irish poet John O'Donoghue. And those are our soul friends. Those are the people who know us, who see us, who support us, who get real with us, who help us advance, who kick us in the pants when we need that. And often for the graduate student, these anamkaras need to come from outside the academic discipline. What brings so many graduate students into a career center for confidential coaching, counseling, and advising is because they do not want their dissertation advisors or other academic professionals in the department to know that they are considering this, your word, adjacency, because it tends not to be well received by those who are looking for proteges to come up through the ranks and move to the next level. So this idea of a network, these anamkaras outside of the bubble that they are living in, is extremely important spiritually, psychologically, and certainly professionally.
I love this. And the reason I love this is twofold. One of them is anytime I've had conversations or I've asked questions about mentorship, I'm asking someone, did you have mentors during your journey? I get the, not really. Or, oh, yes, I had this person and this. And it feels like some people are born on the mentor planet and then some people are born on the mentorless planet. Of course, I know this is not the truth, but where I'm getting at is there's some aspect of serendipity in finding a mentor, but I'm always curious when I hear someone who has something to say about mentorship, about how can people find one? How can people conjure one out of and I think you pointed to one aspect that's important, which is they are not within the walls of your lab. They're not within the walls of your institute, and probably they're not within the walls of university. But do you have something to share about this question? Because a lot of graduate students out there feel alone. They are on this solo relationship with their supervisor, and we all know this is not healthy. And anytime someone who knows and who has experience with mentorship tells, it's the best thing that could happen to me, I feel that everyone should have access to it. So can you share a little bit more about that?
I think what I would say is we need to demystify this notion of mentoring. So I'll say something that may be not popular among some listeners, and that is I think the term mentorship is too loaded, David. I think I need to find a mentor and we need to meet every other Tuesday for coffee. And I need to send that person updates on what I'm doing. And whoa, it's a lot. It creates an intensity to a relationship that I believe needs to be organic. So when I think about the people in my life who are my anamkaras, who have supported me, it's looser than that. There is no official contract around, would you be my mentor and here's what I need. It's more of a natural progression of meeting people, whether we are introverted or extroverted, and taking the initiative to say, wow, you're doing some things that really interest me. I'd love to learn more, and seeing where that goes. Some of these pathways lead to really terrific, deep relationships, and others are short-lived or don't really go anywhere, and all that's fine. But it's really, really important for us to expand, as you said, outside the walls of the department, perhaps even the institution, and start building a network of people doing work that in some way fascinates us, that makes us curious, that there's something about them. The book is Tonesetters in the account. They're a tone setter for us, right? Whatever they're doing, however they're living their lives, we're like, yeah, I want me some of that. What can I do to learn more about the path that this person has chosen? And for those people who serve as our anamkaras, we know, David, and I'm sure you've seen this in your own lived experiences, we appreciate being able to tell our stories. People appreciate the opportunity, as I do, speaking to you today, to say, well, this is where it all started. And oh my gosh, this is how I got to where I am. And here are some of the lessons learned. It's truly a win-win relationship. And I'm such a big believer of that. I'm glad we're streaming on LinkedIn. So I feel that all of our academic listeners should have LinkedIn profiles. Sadly, because I work with so many university officials, there are still so many faculty members and researchers who have paid no attention to LinkedIn, and I think it's an extraordinary tool.
What you said about not thinking about it as something so formal, the Gandalf to your Frodo or whatever. The reflection came to me that the problem in the question that I asked you is that, and I've had this question for a while, and I think I'm going to change it now after this conversation, is that I was asking you, where do I find them, these beings? And from what you said, it feels to me that actually a mentor can be a solo exercise. You can read a book and they said, okay, this person is my mentor. I dub the author some so-and-so my mentor. And so the problem disappears, because then it just means that a mentor is someone that inspires you, that eventually if it's someone who's alive and that you can talk with and exchange, it's the best probably situation, but it doesn't have to be like that.
It truly comes down to our willingness to recognize that whatever path we take, relationships will matter. Whether we move into the research lab, whether we do the postdoc, or whether we try to find this administrative opportunity somewhere, the relationships matter. It's beyond our curriculum vitae. It's beyond our credentials, our journal articles, our conference presentations. It is our ability. There's a chapter in the book that is all about the people. We can't do it in the academy if we think it's all about us and our credentials and things will happen. If we don't get comfortable in developing and cultivating and sustaining relationships, the road is tough.
Now, one of the things that are mentioned to me a lot is the imposter phenomenon. If you go back to your story, you kind of mentioned it in a certain way, specifically about the pay. You said, here I was now doing this thing that I was loving, but I had a pay cut from my corporate job. And another facet of that is, okay, I've been working towards this degree all these years and blood, sweat, and tears. And now I have my family asking me, why are you now going for this academic administration job? Is this something that people you work with deal with and that you help them with?
I think for many in the academy, we hold such high standards for ourselves. We're surrounded by so much competition, so many brilliant scholars and academics and researchers and even administrators. And we're also surrounded by a lot of egos. There are plenty of egos on our college campuses. We know that all around. So this imposter syndrome is certainly real in all professional realms, but we especially see this to be true in college campuses. There's a chapter in the book about limitations, and I refer to imposter and some other syndromes that people experience as these limitations. And what is it that we can do to overcome this sense that I'm less than, Or is this all there is? Or will this ever work out for me? Or have I just given up and I've taken this alternative path and it's not where I need to be? So another service that certainly we might take advantage of while we're in graduate school, just look at counseling and psych services, David, on college campuses, and look at the emphasis on well-being among learners that certainly didn't exist to the extent that it does today when I was an undergraduate or in graduate school. There are so many services and supportive professionals that are part of one's tuition or whatever one's relationship is with the university to help process this imposter syndrome or whatever limitation one is facing, to come up with some practical tools to reframe this sense of I don't belong here into a place where, you know what, I've got a lot to learn. I am going to be present to this. We will see where this goes. So it's kind of moving the mind into more of an explorer's mode, a place where it's not about what I don't have or what other people have that I can't seem to get my hands on. It's about how much I have to grow and learn. It's kind of the ultimate growth mindset, which comes up in coaching a lot. Can we go from this place of a limited fixed mindset where, oh, this is really, David, this is all we have? Ugh, doesn't sound so great. Into there is so much out there for me to explore and learn about. I love the people that I meet who are seasoned academics and administrators on campuses who are in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s, who have that same sense of exploration as they did when they were new to their campuses. And that's really what I aspire to be at that point in my life with that level of excitement and enthusiasm. There's no been there, done that. There's just more to learn.
So there's different ways I've seen people contribute to their university after their PhD in these types of jobs, be it like in a service that helps other researchers with their grants, with their grant writing, etc. That's one way. You mentioned careers. That's another way. And I don't know if you have other examples, but what are let's say transferable skills, typical transferable skills that for someone who's listening and saying, oh, but where would I fit in the administration of my university? Maybe sharing or listing some typical transferable skills would help them say, oh, okay, actually, yeah, that's something that's if the university needs someone with this profile, it's something I could help with. Are there some that you have top of mind?
Sure, and there's plenty of content out there for graduate students about that adjacency and how they could reframe their experience with skills that are compelling to organizations outside traditional tenure track departments. So a couple of things come to mind if we were going to establish a list. One certainly would be communication skills, writing ability, for many graduate students, speaking ability. An appreciation of healthy argumentation and how to make a case, whether that case is for a grant, whether that case is for a new program, so that appreciation of and expertise in persuasion. For so many grad students in various disciplines, they bring to organizations a precision and an analytical ability that organizations struggle to identify from candidates who do not possess their skills. And then finally, I would say an appreciation of how the other side works. So on campuses, you got the faculty and you got the staff. There is always this barrier in the middle. And another thing that our graduate students bring to administrative roles is a true awareness of what makes these academics tick. Because some of our staff members don't understand why they have summers off, why they get sabbaticals every 5 years, why they always seem immersed in research. But our PhDs and those in graduate programs can help translate that. So those are just a short list of what I think are many characteristics that could make a doctoral candidate quite impressive for a wide range of positions, if they are able to position it in such a way that I know I have value to add, And I'm aware that there is going to be a learning curve as I add that value.
One of the things that we didn't say like that, but that I think is part of the message, is to listen to your interests. If you have, during your passage through grad school, you feel drawn to questions of, let's say, policy, university policy or whatever, or like in your case, you were doing this project and you thought, I want to learn more, hands-on about student career services. Or it could take different forms. Don't dismiss it just because, let's say, you're doing a PhD in something completely different, in my case, it was cell biology. You mentioned chemistry, it could be anything, but go talk with people who are involved in these things and start establishing these first conversations, but eventually relationships, and allow yourself to nurture that idea and to see whether eventually it's something you want to invest more in, not as an alternative to finishing your degree, but to something you can do and contribute to the university once you're done. And I think this is what's important, because often people have these conversations, and you said years ago you would hear alt-ac a lot, alternative. It was either or. Why not and? And I think the beauty about this conversation today is, to me, it's clearly a question of and it's really a question of then creating a little space for it in your day-to-day. For you, it was a very structured 10-hour weekly 10-hour thing. It doesn't have to be like that, but there's club now. There's even, let's say like science policy clubs or groups that you can get involved in. You can also eventually, like I mentioned, be involved in student, in university bodies that have student representation. But I think you can nurture the idea and be proud of eventually taking that turn, and not think, oh, I'm not doing a postdoc, so I failed, and because that's one of the rhetorics that are out there. And of course, like you mentioned, it stems from the fact that, departments want their students to go certain places to then be able to report that, oh, look, from this group, this many professors in these many universities. But that's their problem. If you have an interest and a passion for that, it's a viable and fulfilling mission to take. I wonder if this resonates with your message, and whether you have maybe a last word of inspiration for people considering this.
I think you used the word nurture, and that's really important. To me, that reminds listeners that you need to consider some initiatives that you will take. If we let all of this happen to us and we live in our bubble with our heads down and we do the work and we follow the leads of our dissertation advisors and researchers and others in the department, great qualified people, but it's up to us if we want to expand beyond that. And so I think this can be a yes and scenario. I mean, look at all of the people who do find their way into tenure track and become department chairs and then move on to become vice presidents and provosts and presidents. We have university presidents with JDs, with PhDs in engineering, with EDDs, which is becoming more popular in some of our senior officials. So there is a lot of opportunity out there. And within ourselves, there needs to be this initiative to explore, to connect with these committees and these groups, to develop these relationships, and to here's the term I'll land on, let the planned happenstance happen, a term coined in Stanford many years ago by John Krumboltz. That is, it's not that we need to have the pathway mapped out. That's stressful and we can't really predict it. But we can have a readiness about how we approach our academic and professional and personal life, that when opportunity comes to us, as it did for me at UVA, we seize the moment.
I love it. It's a great place to land. Andy, if someone listening, someone watching is curious about maybe digging a little bit more into this question, how do they reach out to you? What's the best place to do so, and on what platforms?
So a couple, and thank you for the scroll. AndrewTSeperley.com. They could find me on my website. There is a way to contact me via Zoom chat, via email. As I mentioned earlier, I'm also active on LinkedIn. That's a great connection to make, and we could dialogue that way as well.
And please share the full title of the book so people can remember it.
So it was just released 2 days ago. So this is an exciting week for me, David. It's called Tonesetters in the Academy, How to Build an Inspired Life as a University Administrator. And it was 3 years in the making. So I'm feeling good right now. Here it is.
Excellent. Congratulations, Andy. This has been great. Again, I'm really, really glad that we crossed paths like we did, that you were able to share some time with me and the audience. Like I said, this question of staying in academia in the form that we just talked about is something that hadn't been really covered in a full episode per se on the show. So I'm really, really grateful that I could do it with you. It was a pleasure, pleasurable conversation. It's always great to have a conversation with someone who has given so much thought. You just said 3 years in the making for the book, so you've thought a lot about this. But also, you were able to share your personal story, which I think enriched the conversation even more. So thank you for being on Beyond the Thesis.
Thank you for having me, Papa PhD. It's great to spend time with you.
Cheers, and all the best for the book launch.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to episode 6 of the 6th season of Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD, with me, David Mendes, and my guest, Andy Ceperley. If you have questions or comments about what we discussed in this episode, you can now bring them directly to me in the brand new Papa PhD community on Skool.com. Simply go to skool.com/PapaPhD in one word and discover the course material, the weekly live sessions, and all that I share with a community of people like you trying to figure out their professional future after the PhD. See you there.